I need to start losing weight. Let me just search up some weight loss methods. Yeah, I tried a lot of these pills, but I feel like none of these really work.
Hey, have you tried this pill called DNP by any chance?
Oh, what is that?
You haven't heard of DNP? It's like one of the best weight loss pills out there.
Yeah, but let me try looking it up. This looks interesting. I'll try to buy it. Oh man, I don't know what's wrong with me. Is this because of the pills? Let me see if there's like side effects for DNP.
2,4-dinitrophenol, or DNP, is a picric acid stabilizer and was originally used as an industrial yellow dye component for explosives during World War I. DNP gained notoriety as a weight loss drug when Stanford pharmacologist Maurice Tainter discovered its metabolic processes through observed weight loss among World War I munition workers, as well as his clinical trials involving obese volunteers in 1933. This convinced Tainter that DNP could work as a miracle drug for rapid weight loss, and within a year of this research, DNP was accessible over the counter to US citizens. DNP was heavily scrutinized because it has a low threshold for overdose and therefore significant fatality rates in relation to its effectiveness for weight loss. The FDA eventually banned DNP's wholesale use in 1938, claiming that it was unsafe for consumption. Unfortunately, due to online access, DNP incidents have risen since 2000 in the United States.
During normal oxidative phosphorylation, electrons flow through the electron transport chain in the inner mitochondrial membrane, where NADH and FADH2 donate electrons to complex 1 and 2. These complexes pass electrons to ubiquinone, shuttle electrons to complex 3, then transfer the electrons to cytochrome C to complex 4. Meanwhile, while the electrons then pass through the complexes 1, 3, and 4 pump protons across the inner mitochondrial membrane from the matrix to the inner membrane space. ATP synthase under normal conditions then use the proton gradient to drive ATP synthesis. In mammalian mitochondria, per one full rotation of the C ring, 10 protons are used to produce 3 ATP in the matrix via ATP synthase. Proton movement down the concentration gradient are the chief driver for the conversion of ADP and inorganic phosphate into ATP.
In the presence of DNP within the intermembrane mitochondrial space, the negatively charged oxygen atom on the first carbon will bind with the free-roaming protons in the intermembrane space. The binding of the hydrogen ions with the DNP molecule prevents ATP synthase from working, as there's no longer that proton motive force that catalyzes the ATP synthesis. Depending on how many hydrogen ions are taken away by the DNP molecule, this may either only limit ATP synthesis or completely inhibit ATP synthesis depending on high concentrations. The potential energy is thus dissipated as heat, and there's an accumulation or buildup of ADP as a result of this.
The primary manifestations associated with DNP is hypothermia, categorized by the increase in core temperatures exceeding 100 degrees Celsius. Symptoms for DNP overdose therefore include tachycardia, diaphoresis, and tachypnea. Symptoms like rashes or yellow perspirations, evidence for the body attempting to physically remove the drugs from the system, are also evident in patients experiencing DNP overdose. Unfortunately, there are no alternative treatment methods for DNP overdose aside from actively cooling down the patient's body until they return to baseline temperature. Therefore, it's highly recommended that the patient does not use DNP due to its acute toxicity and its lethal dose of 14 to 43 milligrams per kilogram. Overall, DNP, in terms of class content, is important because the molecule is the main proton ionophore we discussed in class. In the lecture about the concept of the uncoupling of ETC and chemiosmosis, it was the main molecule that carried the proton and then passed said proton down its concentration gradient, remember high to low, It's also important because the molecule then ties to thermogenesis, especially since the movement down the concentration gradient causes a rise in body heat temperatures. So if you recall the electron brown versus white adipose tissues, we discussed how thermogenesis processes are sometimes beneficial, just like when the thermogenin in a brown tissue allows newborns to generate heat because they can't shiver, and sometimes helps native Arctic dwellers to not freeze to death. Although it's not necessarily about DNP, it's still the process of generating heat, right? With like the lack of being able to produce ATP.